Welcome to Autism Accreditation. We're pleased you've decided to join us in celebrating and developing your own autism practice within your provision. The following slides will lead you through some basic early information about what to expect across your accreditation journey, and in particular, how to tackle your self-audit process. Your accreditation journey. There are 4 key stages within your accreditation journey. These include pre-assessment, assessment, the committee decision, and then maintaining and progressing your accreditation. The pre-assessment stage. At this stage, you'll carry out a comprehensive and detailed review of your current practice. In order to do this, you can use your Self-Audit Toolkit, which you'll have been allocated when you first registered with the programme. From your findings, you'll be able to implement an accreditation action plan based on the audit. And you can also opt in for quality development sessions from your advisor, and these will help you also reflect on your practice and how to undertake an action plan. Your assessment can be booked at 6 months' notice. The assessment. An assessment meeting with your advisor can be formed either digitally or in person to plan the format of your assessment and help you understand what to expect. Your assessment days include observation of practice, the oversight of key person-centred documentation, and discussions with key people within the provision. This may also include autistic people where relevant. Observations may also be undertaken by an independent moderator, depending on the size of your registration. There will also be an online accreditation survey sent to families and/or autistic people. A report summary of the assessment findings will be developed by your advisor towards the end of the assessment days. These will highlight areas of strength as well as developments and will be sent to the awards committee to consider for accreditation. The committee decision. The committee considers your assessment report and decides on an award to give. This is based on a criteria, and there are 3 potential outcomes. There is aspiring, which is where the provision has made good progress towards meeting the standards, but with some inconsistencies and a need for further developments. Accredited, the provision is overall meeting the standards and is providing good support for autistic people with only minor areas of development. And advanced, this is where provisions which are already accredited can apply for advanced status if they want to be considered as centres of excellence. Maintaining and progressing. Provisions are offered a new assessment plan if they wish to stay in the programme. This comes at the end of the assessment. They can continue to access advisor support and work on areas of development identified from their assessment. They also have the opportunity to request a further assessment to show they are maintaining the standards or have progressed to the next level. We recommend this occurs within 3 years to ensure that our award can be considered a meaningful reflection of current practice. How long does each step take? This can depend on 2 things. How well good practice is already in place and consistent across the provision at the point of registration, and also how much time and resources can be committed to carrying out the self-audit, implementing the action plan, and preparing for the assessment process. We do recommend that from the start you set your own dates as targets to work towards. This will help maintain a focus and direction. An example has been given to you on the slide. The Self-Audit Tool is based on our framework of best practice and is divided into 4 topic areas. These are commitment and consultation, understanding the autistic person, enabling the autistic person, and positive outcomes for the autistic person. You will also see within the topics that they are then divided into strands. Commitment and consultation has 3 strands containing commitment, partnership, and consultation. In the remaining 3 sections, you will find the same strands, which include differences in social communication, self-reliance and problem solving, sensory experiences, and emotional well-being. The commitment and consultation relates to the backstage elements of a good provision for autistic people, which implicitly inform the outcome of the assessment. This may include things around training or operational policies and consultation with autistic people or their families. The other three topics, understanding, enabling, and outcomes, directly relate to practice and the criteria by which we directly assess observations and support plans during the assessment. As said before, these three topics cover the same 4 strands, which we refer to as the quartet of difference. Each strand is broken down into a series of questions. You are required to score each question according to the following criteria. This is generally an internal team decision as to whether you feel you fully meet the question and have no further developments around that area, to not meeting it at all, or also you may question whether it's relevant to your provision. The Self-Audit Tool also has a RAG rating system. As you score each question from fully met to not met, you will see that the score box changes colours, red, amber or green. This provides an immediate visual guide for you to where patterns of strength and development may lie. Within the Self-Audit Toolkit there is a scoring system. This will help you track your progress by referring to automatically generated scores. The 2 elements include data collection score, which is how many questions you've answered throughout the audit, and also the achievement score, which is based on how you have rated whether you fully meet to not meeting the question in hand. Key points to consider. The self-audit is based on the same framework that we employ to assess provisions. It is therefore a good indicator of what areas will be considered when you are assessed. Feedback tells us that provisions find the self-audit provides a framework for development and the process encourages reflection and discussion within teams. You will be expected to make the final version of the self-audit available when the assessment takes place and may find it helpful to share the self-audit with your advisor for informal feedback leading up to the assessment. However, we believe that the self-audit process will only be useful to you if you complete it with honesty and self-reflection. To ensure this, the self-audit is not treated as evidence during your assessment and is not shared with the awards committee. There is no pass mark you need to achieve or any correct responses. Some questions may be very challenging, and this is intentional as we want the self-audit to be aspirational and thought-provoking, even for very good provisions. Getting started. Set up a quality action group. Ask other staff members to join a quality action group to meet regularly in order to work on the self-audit and action plan. The quality action group should ideally include representation from different departments and levels of management, and maybe representation from autistic people or other key stakeholders. You may have a core of regular members as well as those you call on to discuss specific topics or issues. In some provisions, it may not be possible to set up a quality action group, and you may find yourself doing most of the work alone. However, it is important that you find ways of consulting with and including others so the self-audit is truly representative of your service and not just the perspective of one individual. Pick a strand. Ploughing your way through question after question is likely to be tedious and a frustrating experience. We recommend breaking the self-audit into strands and picking one to look at first. Before looking at the questions, start by brainstorming everything you think the provision does in this area. For example, differences in social communication. The questions include: what do we do to understand the social communication of the autistic people we support? What do we do to enable social communication? How do we measure outcomes? For example, evidence that may be used as part of this strand could include, in relation to how you understand social communication, is that communication profile help inform communication passports. When you're looking at enabling social communication, evidence may include visual supports, social stories, speech and language therapy programs, or things like, do you run a social skills program? And in relation to how you measure these outcomes, this could include communication targets that are regularly reviewed, and you can state how often. Now try to answer the questions with your list at hand. Are there any gaps or inconsistencies? Are there things you may not be sure about? Who do you need to speak to in order to find this out? Your advisor or another member of staff? You can repeat this process for each strand and may do so over a period of time and more than once maybe. Try to think of ways in which you can engage the whole staff in the process. For example, you may run a staff workshop where people are put in small groups to consider how they would answer specific questions. This will provide insight into whether there is a shared understanding and where there may be gaps or inconsistencies. Staff may also come up with examples of things that are happening in the provision that you may have overlooked or may have been unaware of. When engaging autistic people, and where appropriate their families, it may be best to think of key questions that relate to the self-audit and how you think these could be presented in a clear and accessible way. For example, what activities do you like doing at the day centre? Are there other activities you would like us to offer? For example, some autistic people, this could be asked using visual supports. Other questions such as, do you think staff do enough to support your child's emotional well-being, or are there things you would like them to do? The action plan. As you work your way through the self-audit, you are likely to identify lots of action points. We suggest you group these as priorities, back burners, and quick wins. In the Self-Audit Tool, we include a simple pro forma for an action plan, but you may wish to create your own or include it with an existing development plan. What support is available? If you get stuck on a question, you can always email your advisor to ask for their help. You have the option of asking the advisor to carry out a quality development visit. This could involve a learning walk, observation of key activities, and advice on your self-audit and action plan. You can also ask if an online meeting can be arranged. So what's next? Once your action plan is set up, you should be able to predict how much time you will need to address all priority areas. Bearing in mind that you need to give us at least 6 months' notice, you can think about booking your assessment when you feel ready. Good luck with your self-audit and reflecting on your practice. And as we've mentioned before, if you need any advice or have any queries, contact your advisor and they'll be happy to help.